Dr. McCullough, thanks for being here. Thanks for all you've done. Why didn't more doctors speak out? There were so few, handful. What was the problem?
You have to ask doctors why they didn't do it. When I went on Tucker Carlson, that's one of the questions I got. I can tell you initially, I was at a major health system. I was on various, pandemic response committees. I think people were frozen in fear. People were scared to death. You know what most of our meetings were in hospitals were about? Is how we were going to protect ourselves. Where are we going to get the masks? Where are we going to get the protective suits and hand sanitizer? It wasn't about the patients. I think initially doctors were gripped by fear. And then when they were told they can close their offices and do telemedicine, they closed their offices. Right away, no problem. And then once that set in, when they were told, listen, you don't have to treat it, it's untreatable. You can wait for people to go to the hospital. They latched onto that. And very few doctors, myself and a few others said, this isn't gonna work. The hospital's gonna be too late. I was paying attention to this. All the deaths occurred in the hospital. There were two bad outcomes, hospitalization and death, and I wasn't going to let it happen in my practice. I wasn't going to let it happen in my family members, and it boiled down to who was going to step up. Sadly, we have 1 million doctors in the United States, 500,000 nurse practitioners and PAs. We estimate about 500 doctors carried us. You know the doctors who carried us. Richard Bartlett in West Texas. He was making observations, about budesonide. Yvette Lozano in Dallas, working with hydroxychloroquine. Still Emmanuel in Houston. Angie Farrell. These are the hero doctors. We've been invited to testify all over. But what about your doctor? How come your doctor didn't step up? Many of them didn't. The same doctors who didn't step up and treat patients are the same ones who's promoting the vaccines full on. They're one and the same. So they fell into this pattern of thinking. It's up to you to bring them out of it. Next time you see your doctor, ask him, doctor, do you treat COVID now? Have you learned the protocols after 3 years? What if we get a more severe version? Ask them about the vaccines. If I was a patient, and I'll tell my doctor when I see him, listen, I did last year, the vaccines aren't safe enough for me. You may think they're safe enough. If you want to take some more, go ahead. But they're not safe enough for me. If every doctor heard from a patient the vaccines weren't safe enough, every single patient visit, they take on a different view. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Our daughter is an NC2A swimmer, and she didn't take the vaccine. What happened to her HIPAA rights? It was they showed up the day of school, vaccinated here, unvaccinated there. It was public record. There were emails sent, texts sent. You get to come, you don't get to come. You talked to even today about Biden and going to the White House, the NC2As. What are we supposed to do about that? What happened to HIPAA?
HIPAA, like all other types of protections, was quickly dropped, and it's such a double standard, right? So Tucker Carlson wanted me to come on and discuss Damar Hamlin, the Buffalo Bill player who had a cardiac arrest. And I went on and said, listen, Tucker, I see patients like this in my practice. They come in and see me. I said, the first thing I need to know is, did he take a vaccine? Because the COVID vaccine causes heart damage, and if they have heart damage, they can't play sports. It'll trigger cardiac arrest. It's in our guidelines. And to this day, despite the Buffalo Bills demanded people show their vaccine card, so they lost their HIPAA rights right there. The Buffalo Bills demanded the fans show the vaccine. When it comes to Hamlin, the Bills doctors and Hamlin, no mention of the vaccine to this day. Mm-hmm. NFL had 95% of players take the vaccine. And shockingly, he says that he's going to return to the field, that the real cause is that he tackled somebody. That doesn't cause a cardiac arrest. And he'll be the first player in history to have a primary cardiac arrest on the field, shocked, resuscitated, and then return to play with no ICD. Let's see what happens this fall. Yeah.
So I'm a nurse case manager, and I've been having to take care of a lot of people with long COVID. Can you tell me what we're supposed to do with that?
Well, long COVID now is called post-acute sequelae syndrome. Long COVID is because the virus stays in the body so long, the spike protein stays in the body so long. And in fact, it's made worse by taking vaccines. Most people now have taken vaccines and they've had COVID multiple times, so they had multiple doses of the spike protein. What we're learning is there are specific syndromes we need to treat. So myocarditis, there's certain prescription drugs, blood clots, we need to use blood thinners, etc. But the general fatigue and hair falling out and weight loss, numbness and tingling, headache, that the natural products appear to be working where the prescription ones are not. This is very interesting. So the Japanese have discovered that nattokinase, which is the breakdown product of fermentation of soy by a bacteria, Bacillus subtilis natto. So they've been eating natto, which is kind of a fermented product, for 1,000 years for health benefits. It's a cardiovascular supplement in Japan. You can actually take capsules of it. But what they discovered, it dissolves the spike protein. Where the human enzymes can't dissolve this artificial spike protein, nattokinase can. Huge discovery. There are no prospective randomized trials, so I can't make any therapeutic claims, but nattokinase is far and away the most important thing we've learned. 100 milligrams twice a day, or 2,000 fibrinolytic units. It's a blood thinner, so we have to watch for bleeding. People with soy allergies can't take it. But nattokinase is the single greatest advance in hope we have for long COVID. Another natural enzyme, bromelain, derived from the stems of pineapples, also dissolves the spike protein molecule. So bromelain looks good, 500 milligrams a day. Other products that actually tend to block the spike protein's damaging effects, curcumin from turmeric, 500 milligrams twice a day. And then one last one is N-acetylcysteine, an antioxidant. So 4 natural products seem to have some benefit. I think it's so interesting that an unnatural virus and an unnatural spike protein, a very unnatural vaccine, and that our response is natural products. I mean, this is so interesting. Even aspirin is derived from the bark of birch trees. So aspirin, we use that, that's natural. Hydroxychloroquine from the chinchona tree. Ivermectin from the dirt in Japan. Steroids, which are just endogenous natural substances in animals' bodies. And then the 4 supplements that I mentioned. Isn't it interesting that almost our entire response to COVID has been natural to a very unnatural thing? So for long COVID, if you were to search for products, look for nattokinase, bromelain, curcumin, and then N-acetylcysteine. How do you spell that? Well, what you can do is you can go on my Courageous Discourse Substack, and I review all of them. Just type it in the search and you'll find it.
So, you kind of positioned globalism as evil, as opposed to nationalism, maybe, or I'm not sure what you were, but globalism we've kind of identified as the evil that's gave us the pandemic and everything. And President Trump had been the single most accomplished president of our lifetime. He did more for this country than anybody ever has. He did tell us about hydroxychloroquine, and he told us about the antibodies. And I think what a lot of people don't realize too is that he put the full force of the American government into opposing child sex trafficking, which has done probably more harm to more children than the pandemic ever could. Now, RFK Jr. has positioned himself as the healthcare freedom hero, but he's a globalist. He blamed the pandemic on climate change, and he's associated with Scientology and Nation of Islam, and things that you might say are evil. So which person do you align yourself mostly with? You're at a political meeting here, so I thought maybe I would ask. You're kind of pretty evil to good, and globalism is evil, so how does that reconcile with RFK positioning himself as a leader of medical freedom?
Yeah, I think it's reasonable. It's a reasonable interpretation to, when you sense evil or feel evil, that it is what it is. It doesn't ride with a political party or an institution. It's when people really want to do harm to other people. So suppressing early treatment was evil. It actually was doing harm. To force a vaccine on somebody who doesn't like it and have them lose their life, that's evil. Right? I mean, that's the expression of evil that we're seeing. Let me tell you, politically, I'm an independent, so I'm not afraid to vote for a Republican. I'm not afraid to vote for a Democrat. You have to be pretty strong to be an independent, right? You have to be stronger than either one of the 2 tribes. The independents are the strongest people we have in the country, so you have to be strong. So I'm strong, and I'm an independent, and people have to earn my vote. No one's going to stand in front of me and act like a king. We live in a democracy. We've seen people stand in front of kings. We've seen people try to install their families as royal families. We've seen it over decades now. Okay? That's not what this country was founded on. The independents are the strongest people we have. I'm talking to all the presidential administrations, and my point to them is I want to see all of them get better. Well, how can we get better? I said, well, let me sit down and talk to you. It's pretty easy. Every single one of them can get better, right? All of them are trying to find their platforms. All of them are trying to fend off different attacks. We're seeing wide open corruption, unprecedented things, trying to jail a political opponent, for instance. So we're seeing things of unprecedented corruption. But no single candidate right now has got it. They don't. They all have enormous shortcomings, and you pointed them out. So what we have to do is we have to help our candidates get better. If you're part of a tribe, if you're a Republican and all you've done is vote Republican your entire life, make your tribe better. Ask yourself the question, if you're a Republican, why do the Democrats have the upper hand? Why? How does that happen? Are they meeting in other churches? Do they have greater organization than you do? Why do they have the upper hand? I personally don't get it. I really don't. You have to ask yourself the question, why is that? Why does school pornography and transgender clinics and this distorted thinking, why does that have the upper hand? I can't explain it. I can't explain it. What's that? Yeah, it just seems like there's just something, going on bigger than politics. So I want to see everybody get better, and I'm willing to help them all. Yeah.
First, I want to thank you for standing up for what's right and having integrity. Great courage. Second, how worried should we be about the blood supply in our hospitals?
One country, Switzerland, just has a checkbox that says, did you take a vaccine in such and such a time? So in Switzerland, you can say, listen, I didn't take the vaccine. I don't want someone donating blood, because we now know the vaccine is in the blood. But what we've never seen is transference of the vaccine through the blood from one person to another. It's never been described. We don't know if it survives the filtering process and the blood processing. So few people are taking a vaccine now, and units of blood only last 120 days, that I think it's, honestly, I think medically it's low risk. I'm unaware of any transfusion reactions. I was part of a group that wrote the American Red Cross in 2021 and said, we have got a problem. And American Red Cross acknowledged it, but they didn't do anything about it. Now the American Red Cross is changing all their forms, all their check boxes. I said, terrific, here's our chance. Just ask them if they took a vaccine. They're not doing that. You know what they're changing all their check boxes for at American Red Cross? For all the new transgender names and pronouns. Yes. So you can see the distorted thinking that's going on. Something medically important, like did you take a vaccine or did you have COVID, is not being collected. Yeah.
I'm sorry, we're going to have to stop here. I apologize. We've done 6 questions because he's going to be out there signing books.
Okay.
And I think we'd be here, Thank you all for waiting. I'm sorry about that.